Welcome back to the Real with Joseph Lappin. I am Joseph Lappin. Hope you guys are having a great Thursday afternoon. Welcome into the Real. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, and share. I'd really appreciate that on the way in here. And welcome into the Real. Um, so let's get right to it. Um, Back half of the show, I got some NBA news for you guys. I'm gonna react to and share some insights and stuff that I've read and gathered the last couple of days, where I think things could be heading with the Cavs, possibly LeBron and Giannis. So I will get to that. And then to start off the show, I'm gonna get to some Browns news. Myles Garrett situation. Is it a situation? Is it anything? Mike Rutenberg, the defense coordinator for the Browns, spoke yesterday when asked if he's talked to Myles, and that kind of has raised a lot of people's eyes, raised their eyebrows rather, and wondered is Myles going to get traded? The whole thing. We've been here before, so I'm going to react to the Myles thing and what I think possibly could be going on there. But to start, let's get to the main topic of the show, and also in Cleveland today. Obviously, the Cavs lost earlier this week. People have talked about where they think it could go, but yesterday, though, really flipped the headlines to some more positive things, and possibly positive things, you hope, with the Browns. And they had OTAs yesterday, so let's get to it. Deshaun Watson. Is Watson back? Deshaun Watson yesterday, as you can see right here, they had their practice yesterday, OTA practice session number 2. Shedeur Sanders got 14th completion, or threw the ball 14 times for 8 completions, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Watson 11 to 17, 6 touchdowns, 1 interception. Gabriel 1 of 3, 1 pick. Taylor Green didn't get any reps, but so Deshaun Watson yesterday, he was the one that really caught a lot of people's eyes. Now Shedeur made a couple of nice passes. I saw he threaded the needle a few times. Had some good, some bad moments. Deshaun still had a lot of good plays yesterday. Best I've seen him throw the ball in a while, at least what I saw from the video, in terms of just the arm strength and the accuracy and just the ball coming out of his hand. Still had a couple bad plays, but for both those guys, I'm not really focused too much about the interceptions right now. Obviously, if it was a high number, you want to get that down, which Todd Monken addressed that, at the practice a few weeks ago, saying 7 was too much, and it was, in a 7-on-7. But guys are going to make mistakes. It's practice. It's early. It's spring. You'd rather make it there than in the real deal. So, with Deshaun Watson, though, in particular, he's the guy yesterday that really caught a lot of people's eyes, again, with the throws he was making. We've heard a lot of the reports so far this offseason, and a lot of people debated, what's real, what's not real. Everybody's lying and blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of people, honestly, especially around Shedeur, I think a lot of people really just want to believe what they want to believe and what they hope happens, whether they like him or not. And I think that's how people are kind of going about that. Me personally, I've been covering the Browns on this show for 4 years now. I've been around football for a lot of my life. And I could just kind of tell from my own eye, my own observation. And I'm not always right. Don't know all the answers, but I know a few things. And I know some people that do as well. People I've had on my show, like Stump Mitchell, who was in that building and is an NFL coach. So, for me personally, I kind of look at the situation as where I'm seeing the reps kind of allocated, but also what I think Todd Monken could be thinking as a first-time head coach. I think with Deshaun Watson, obviously he has more experience than the other 3 guys in that room because he's been in the NFL longer. Naturally, he's going to have more experience. He's going to be a little more ahead. He's going to know more of the terminology and all that stuff. He's going to have an advantage in that area. And so with Deshaun, as long as he's healthy and his mind, in my opinion, the biggest thing with him his whole time he's been here hasn't been just his health, which we know that's been a big issue. He's had season-ending injuries, unfortunately, and it's affected him. And when you watch him in 2024, it was not only a season-ending injury, his arm didn't look great, but also just mentally, confidence-wise, he did not look good. And I think that's Deshaun's biggest thing, is he needs his confidence restored. You could have all the talent in the world, but if you ain't got it up there, like my old coach used to say growing up, you're not going to be able to go out there and perform and execute it like you want to. Mind over matter. And so I think with both of these guys, mind over matter, Shedeur, he needs to be confident in what he's doing and learning what he's doing. Dylan Gabriel still, you never know what happens in the season. Knock on wood, anybody gets hurt, he gets thrown out in the fire. Taylor Green, if they use him for packages on the goal line, he has to be confident going out there doing it. And this is why coaching matters. And I think what you're seeing with Deshaun Watson even right now, because we've obviously seen Deshaun, He was the big trade, obviously one of the biggest trades in sports history back in 2022 with the guaranteed money, 3 first-round picks and all that. And, hasn't panned out, hasn't worked out. A lot of people say it's the worst trade in NFL history. And to this point, you could say it definitely is. But I think now that Deshaun's healthy, you see now in his personal life, he's gotten married. He seems to have settled down a little bit, after all the allegations and stuff that happened. And so you would think he's in a more clearer space now in his life. He's got through all that stuff. He's been injured twice, 2 season-ending injuries, ruptured his Achilles last offseason. Like, he's been through hell and back. So I think with Deshaun, it can't get any worse than what he's been through. And I think what he's missed, what he didn't have with Kevin Stefanski, I think, I thought year one to me for him was 2023. I thought year one he had some stability with Brian, not Brian Callahan, that's his dad. Bill Callahan, excuse me, the offensive line coach, the run game coordinator. You had Alex Van Pelt, but Kevin was calling plays like Stump Mitchell, who was there in the building at the same time as well, the running backs coach. He felt like Kevin wasn't calling plays for Deshaun the way he should have. And that's where a lot of that disconnect was. And, the report, as soon as Kevin left for Atlanta, when he got fired and went to Atlanta, the report came out that he didn't really want Deshaun Watson. So, I think there was always a disconnect there. And I think even when they brought in Ken Dorsey in 2024, Kevin was trying to bring in somebody for an offense allegedly to cater around Deshaun, but he didn't let the guy he brought in call the offense for Deshaun. He called it. And Kevin's only been in one system really his whole career, which is, the Gary Kubiak, Mike Zimmer, all that stuff in Minnesota, that Kubiak system. That's all he knows. Kevin only knows one way. And I think Kevin was trying to veer off into other things. And plus, the pressure from the analytic department telling the owner we need to have more of an air raid offense and blah, blah, blah. And I think that's kind of where that fell apart. And so I think Deshaun has never had the coaching he's needed in Cleveland to help him get back to being that guy that we all were hoping he would be, will be traded for. I don't think Kevin, doesn't mean Kevin's a bad coach. I think Kevin's a decent coach, but I think Kevin only works with certain quarterbacks and certain prototypes. And I think Deshaun Watson was not a match made in heaven at all. It was the complete opposite. And so, and I think where the organization was at that time in terms of the structure up top, and you've had 2 people leave. You had Kevin leave, you have get fired rather. You have DePodesta leave. So now you're right back to square one. And Andrew Berry just had what seems to be a really good draft. He had a good draft last year. And Tom Telesco in there helping consult him a little bit. Now you got a new head coach and Todd Monken, who has shown to develop not only quarterbacks at college and the NFL and won championships, but he's been a part of winning. He's been a head coach before. He has that experience at some level. And now he's got his first shot at the NFL. And so he's a proven quarterback guy. And I think with Deshaun and Shador and Gabriel and Taylor Green, he's exactly what they needed, because this is a guy who's going to cater his offense and he's going to put them in the right spots. His quarterbacks, right? Cater his offense to his quarterbacks and put them in the right spots to be successful. Because he's proven that and shown that. He won with Stetson Bennett, an undersized quarterback in college at Georgia, won back-to-back championships. And then he went with Lamar Jackson, an ultra-talented, freak that he is, and he had 41 touchdowns and had an MVP. So Todd's shown he can get it done with different styles and different quarterbacks. That ain't the issue. And so that's not an issue with him. He's proven that. That's what he's good at. I think that's part of the reason why the Browns hired him. And so I think when I look at Deshaun Watson, is he back? I think he's never had a better chance than right now. I think a lot of these guys on the offensive side of the ball have never had a better chance than right now. You look at a guy even like you look at that offensive line. You got guys on there that have so far through 2 years in their career, haven't really flourished yet. Like take a guy like Zach Zinner. A lot of people hear that name Zach Zinner and they say, "Oh boy, man, he hasn't been that good here. He's been okay at times, but he's not a starter." Blah blah blah. But Zach Zinner was a guy who was a dude at Michigan that year they won the championship. He was arguably the best lineman he was the best lineman on the best offensive line, one of the best offensive lines you'll ever see in college football. Right? He had a catastrophic, a major season-ending injury to his ankle. He was knocked out of that Ohio State game, and So his first year in the NFL, he's coming off a major injury, right? His draft stock dipped because of it. And he also walked into a situation in 2024 where they just fired Bill Callahan for no reason, or well, they didn't fire him, but they let him out the door, didn't even try to stop him. They just fired Alex Van Pelt. You got all these changes. You have an influx of a staff, and 2024 was a complete disservice to all the 53 men on that roster because of the head coach and the staff and the coaching carousel and musical chairs he was trying to do with his coaching staff. It was a complete disservice to that 53 man roster. And so I think when you look at a guy like Zach Sitter, that's what he's had to deal with his first 2 years in the NFL. 2024 was a disaster. I mean, by the end of that year in 24, the guy they hired initially to be the offensive line coach wasn't even the line coach by the end of the year. It was Mike Vrabel, a defensive guy, mainly minded guy who wasn't even here as a a full-time assistant. He was just an overseer and an advisor kind of assistant coach. And so, that's what he had to deal with as a rookie coming off a major injury. That's not very stable, is it? And so, and I think that's the word you got to look at here is stability. And you look last year, there wasn't a whole lot of stability. You had 4 different quarterbacks that came into camp with. Your offensive line was, again, another first-time NFL offensive line coach. And then, Kevin's calling plays and he gives up plays. You got a different quarterback. I mean, it wasn't very stable. You can't. It's hard to flourish and develop as a young player, especially. But any player needs development. Deshaun Watson right now, yeah, he once was what he was, but he's needed development in terms of developing back to being the confident guy that he used to be, developing his abilities again, developing that trust in his mind and the body, right? Trust in his arm, developing trust with his teammates, developing chemistry, developing everything, his reads, his processing, his reacting to gain speed. Like he needs that development because he sat for however long it was that period. I mean, you could sit off a year, 18 months, 2 years. Like that's like a long time. You can, get behind in that period because you're not doing everything you once were doing every day for years. And so with all that being said, Todd Monken brings stability for not only Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Taylor Green, but everybody on that offensive side of the ball. I would even say the whole organization, to be honest with you. I mean, we saw flashes, a lot of that when, we got rid of Joe Woods and brought in Jim Schwartz. There was a lot of guys people wrote off after that 22 season under Jim Schwartz, said, oh, they're not good players. And then all of a sudden, here comes a better coach and brings stability, and it stabilizes that defensive side of the ball and it really develops guys and gets them in the right spots. And then we're like, okay, no, some of these guys can actually play. And the defense took a big leap. It has been one of the best defenses in the league. And so since then, I look at a guy like Todd Monken, he's going to do the same thing offensively. He's going to stabilize that side of the ball. He's going to develop guys and get stuff out of guys that maybe we've already written off that we haven't seen before. And maybe Deshaun Watson's one of those guys. He's obviously the one you would need the most because he's the quarterback, and a lot of people have wrote him off and they said that he's never going to be good again. He's never going to be what he once was. And a lot of people have said Deshaun Watson, is cooked, and that, and that's why people are very skeptical, and they should be. I get it. And so even with the Shedeur Sanders to an extent, a lot of people have written him off and said that, well, they don't think he's going to be an NFL quarterback. Dylan Gabriel even, and I don't think Dylan Gabriel's going to be a starter in the NFL because of his size in particular, being left-handed. But you never know with a guy. A coach matters. And I think with Watson in particular, we always know one thing about Watson. He had and still possesses elite traits. He's 6'3", 225, athletic, can make every throw in the field, right? He's an elite talent. We all know that about Watson. He is an elite talent. I think some of these other guys have elite traits. Watson is just a pure elite talent. Size, speed, athleticism, arm strength, not speed, but athleticism, arm strength, you name it. And we've seen him do it at a high level. And so you saw the intangibles when he was at Clemson, leading them to national championships, So I think with Deshaun, if Todd Monken can really pull that out of him, which it seems like he has so far, and Jerry Jeudy spoke yesterday and said this system is completely different than what they've been running in the past. And then it's a lot more, even the reporters watching said it's a lot different. The practices seem a lot different from my observation. The way they're conducting practices are different. Then to me, you could say there's absolutely a chance that Deshaun Watson can turn it around because he's finally healthy and he has a new head coach who I think is going to get the best out of him. And so you could be pessimistic, obviously, because for me personally, I don't want to say he's back because off of some OTA highlights, because these are some great throws, obviously, especially the one he made to David. That one right there to Denzel Boston was great. But I don't want to say he's back. I don't want to say he's going to be the starter because I want to see it still in live reps. And again, I remind you, there's no Denzel Ward at this practice. I don't even know Tyson Campbell was out there. So you got to see him against all the starters. Myles Garrett's not there rushing after him. So when he gets to training camp, that's what I want to see it stacked day to day. When it's pad on pad, live reps, people can rush you. You got to step up in the pocket. There's no pass rush right here. This is just, throw the ball around, go through your reads, try to read the field in a passing concept, obviously. And so, but when you have a guy rushing you, you have, and you're in the middle of training camp and you're tired and you got to lead the team down a field in a 2-minute drill at practice, you know what I mean? That's where you're going to find out, okay, has he really progressed? Does he look better than he did in the previous years at training camp? And that's for him and Shador and Dylan Gabriel and Taylor, all these guys, especially him and Shador, because that's really the real battle. We all know that. So, for me, with Watson, I want to see it there. I expected him to be ahead of Shador in certain areas because of he's an elite talent, but also, like I said, he's been in the league longer, so of course he's going to have more of an advantage. That's just natural. But I still wouldn't name a starter till after the first preseason game. I want to see it, because remember we saw Deshaun the first time in a Browns uniform against Jacksonville. I think it was in 2022. He going on the field in that preseason game. And yeah, it's not a live game. It's not a it's not a regular season game, but it's against a different team and it's live reps. And that's what I want to see. I want to see both of those guys go out there like we saw Shador last year in Carolina when he went out there and balled out in that game. I want to see both those guys, give them each a quarter, split, give Deshaun the first half, give Shador the second half, or find a way or split, reverse back 2 series, you get 2 series. Like find a way to see them in live reps against another team. And not only that, I want to see Deshaun in a stadium environment with an opposing fan base booing him because that's still going to happen. Again, mentally, it's not just on the field for him. I think a lot of it was, what he went through off the field. If I had to just speculate, he's a human being. So, I think that's a lot of it with him. It's mental. And I want to see that confidence. I want to see it displayed with a stable staff like I think we have now in that setting. After the week 1 preseason games, he plays great and balls out, then you can name him. That's how I would go about it. But I'm not there every day. There's a lot of things Todd Monken sees that I don't see. So if Todd Monken decides to name Deshaun Watson starting quarterback well before training camp, like some people are speculating in June, which was kind of a surprise to me, then there's something he must be really confident in with Deshaun, that he believes he may have him back. And maybe he believes that, I want to let Shador develop a little bit more. And I want to see I think Deshaun can, go out there week 1 and start for us and possibly give us a chance to win. Because I think the Browns, when you look at their roster, they have more depth on the O-line. They got better receiving core. And these 2 young receivers look phenomenal. Boston and Casey Concepcion, they have looked great in the highlights I've seen. I give granted it's only OTAs and stuff, but man, for first time on NFL turf, they've made some pretty impressive highlights and some catches, I think. They look really good. So you got better depth there. Isaiah Bond looks a lot better even too. Jerry Jeudy, I think, in a different role in this offense, I think he'll be fine. I think he can find a way to contribute. He's still a pretty good talent and can get open a lot of times. He's a very good route runner. So, you got some depth there. You got Harold Fannin. You got a better O-line. You got Judkins back. You got Sampson. Like, they got some pieces here. Like, this team's really building. It's just all up to can they get that quarterback? You got George Warhop as the offensive line coach. To me, the most important hire you make as a head coach is your offensive line coach. That's your first and foremost hire you make. And so, which is what he did. And so they got to, you expect stability up there with Coach Warhop, who's one of the best in the business, Bill Callahan type offensive line coach. And so again, it's all right there. They can go out there this year and win. I mean, you look last year, what they finished, 5 wins, I believe, 4 or 5 wins. I think it was 5. I mean, you can there was a couple of games they could easily been sitting there as a 7-win team, 8-win team. And you would think with a better coaching staff, a better talent pool, or just better talent depth on the offensive side of the ball, better O-line, and just again, a more stable staff to help the quarterbacks, they can win 8, 9, 10 games. It's not out of the question. If they get hot, they can get rolling in the middle of the season. I mean, they got one of the weakest schedules in the NFL. The division, there's still talent in the division in the North, but there's still a lot of question marks there. The Bengals every year on paper, they look great, but can they stay healthy? Can they put it together? Pittsburgh, they brought back Aaron Rodgers, but Pittsburgh, to me, again, Mike Tomlin's not there anymore. Mike McCarthy, we'll see what he does, but that's not a guarantee. Baltimore, they have Lamar Jackson. They got some talent still, but John Harbaugh's not there anymore. I mean, he was there for a long time. Again, coaching matters, culture matters. And, I don't expect them to really dip off that much, but maybe they'll get better. You don't know. I just think the North has never had as many question marks going into the season than it does this season, going into this next upcoming season. So I think that's for the Browns. That works well for them because they're kind of playing with house money. Nobody expects that. People expect them to be better than they were last year, but nobody expects them to be like, a division. I haven't seen a lot of people, at least nationally and locally, pick them to win the division. I think people think they can be better, and maybe they can surprise people. So if I'm the Browns, it can line up perfectly for them to make some noise and to really do something. And I think they can. I really think they can. I think with Coach Monken, I think just the message he's sending already, you can tell by the practices, the vibes, the energy. When he talks to the media, you hear him talk to the team and after some of the practices, the way he speaks to them. There's just a different culture vibe that they haven't had. He's one thing they're really working on too is not only turnovers with the quarterbacks and just in general, but also pre-snap penalties and just penalties overall. The Browns are one of the most penalized teams in the NFL for the last 2 years, maybe the most. And that screams lack of discipline and accountability and just a lackluster culture, to be honest with you. What you do in practice from April, April, May, June, July to August, it all translates to what you do in October, November, December. And it's at every level. And so you go to any successful high school program in Northeast Ohio, just start there. And I'm around a few of them, they'll tell you, the coaches that have won multiple championships, that stuff matters. Like anybody that acts like it doesn't, it's just all talent and, this fantasy football mindset of people that never really been around the game. So, they try to get involved and say all this cute stuff that's not really reality. Like that's not how it works. It's not just, you can have all the talent in the world. We've seen Browns teams with a lot of talent, like the 2019 team, but they were poorly coached. They didn't have accountability from the top. And you saw it was a complete disappointment of a season, and it was a complete disservice to those players, just like in 24. There was some talent there. They weren't as bad as they finished, but terrible coaching. Terrible. Horrible culture that year. Zero accountability and just zero stability. And so, and just bad habits allowed. And that's what it was. Bad habits and not correcting those habits in practice. You are what you coach as a head coach. What you coach is what you allow. And so I think with the Browns, I like where they're heading. I like what I'm hearing from Todd Monken. I like the pieces they have. They got some really nice young pieces on offense that are really building. And they got something going there. They're building something now. And I feel like now they're finally building something from a foundation with the right head coach. Because I believe in Todd Monken. I know some people don't believe in Todd Monken. They want to see it, or they think he's too, he's going to get fired in a year or two, or blah, blah, blah. I think Todd Monken is going to work because I think a lot of these players nowadays really want a coach like Todd Monken. Yeah, I think a lot of these players are tired of these passive coaches. And if you have players that like those coaches, those aren't the players you really want, because those are the players who usually like to be held accountable, and they like to do it their way or the highway, and they want to have a little fun and be loose. But all the successful organizations and programs, they don't operate like that. They have a standard every day they live up to, and it starts with the top, with the coach, and there's respect to that top. Like in past years, we hear people say Kevin stuff. They would refer to Kevin as Kevin. They wouldn't say Coach Stefanski. They wouldn't say when Freddie was here, it was just Freddie. They wouldn't say Coach Kitchens ever. That stuff, to me, the little things matter. And I think that just kind of screams what lacks behind the scenes. You're not going to hear that anymore. You're going to hear Coach Monken. So, and that's all I've heard from people is Coach Monken. So, again, I like what I'm seeing. I think with Deshaun, for me, for him and Shador, I want to see them both in a preseason game against another team and live reps and sort it how you'll sort it out. They figure it out, maybe 2 series, split, rotate back and forth. But get some water here. That's what I want to see. And then I'll name a quarterback. But I'm very impressed with what I've seen. And even with Shador, I think Shador is showing definitely looks a lot more comfortable than he does last year. He's getting more reps than he was at this time last year. And I think he's getting more comfortable. That's a nice ball there he threw. And so, again, I think as time moves up and heats up, he's going to catch up. He's going to, at some point, he's going to have to get to where Deshaun is in terms of NFL experience and just knowledge and just a day-to-day comfort, which you only get, some of that stuff you only get through experience, which obviously Deshaun has more years of experience than Shador as a starting quarterback in the NFL. So I think once Shador gets more of that, just that acclimation and learning, having a guy like Coach Monken and being in that room and getting more reps, he's only going to get better, you would think. So I'm really excited about the Browns team right now. I'm very optimistic about this team. I like where they're heading. I like what I'm hearing. It's kind of a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you. So that I'm going to put a bow on that. But actually, no, to finish up on that, I do want to read this about the reps and stuff from yesterday just to kind of give it some context. This is from Zach Jackson, The Athletic. He said, mostly that checks out. Right here, he says, I'll read this. By total reps at open practice and what appears to be mostly equal division of labor, there's no obvious leader. By Watson being first in line for individual drills in all 3 open practices this spring, first up for Wednesday's first competitive period, and the only passer up for the 2-minute situation to close Wednesday's practice, is fair to assume he's the leader. The 2-minute drill ended in quick 3 and out after Watson had 2 broken up passes. It was more of a 15-second drill that went to the defense, but on a set of practice fields that I've seen more than a few extended touchdown droughts, the Browns actually crossing the goal line in what's essentially the passing camp portion of the offseason beats many prior results. So again, there's definitely a lot of improvement with this Brown teams just in practice, and that's exactly what you want to hear because it starts there. So shout out to the Browns and Coach Monk. And again, I just as a Browns fan, I mean, I just gotta. It's just a breath of fresh air. Finishing up with the Browns before I take a break and go on to the NBA. Myles Garrett, and I'll address this briefly because I know a lot of people don't want to hear about it, but I think it's something to talk about. Myles Garrett yesterday was not at OTAs again. He hasn't been in the facility or any OTA all off season. And Mike Rutenberg yesterday, when asked about he was first questioned by Tony Grossi, "Have you talked to Myles?" And here's the new defensive coordinator, Mike Rutenberg, said when asked.
What kind of interaction have you had with Myles Garrett? Yeah, of course, knew that'd be a question. I'm going to leave a lot of that interaction between me and Myles. There has been some, yes.
And so that clip right there has really sent a lot of people kind of in a frenzy a little bit. Like, why he seemed kind of vague when he talked about it. I'm going to leave some of those interactions between Myles and I. We've had interactions. It just seems kind of awkward to some people. Some people, it seems like, hey, he just doesn't want to talk about it because it's a non-story. Like he even said, like, I knew that question was coming. We've already addressed it. Okay, let's move on. What do I think is going on with Myles Garrett? And so I'm going to play this clip here. This is from Dale Ryder today on 92.3 The Fan, courtesy of them. And he spoke kind of why, they asked him, why do you think people are talking about it? And this is on Baskin and Phelps. And I thought he broke down I'm going to react to some of the reasons here today to breaks down why it could be something if Myles gets traded this offseason or maybe down the road in the future. Here's what Daryl had to say.
Myles Garrett left and right, trying to figure this thing out. Daryl, tell me what it means to you, the whole Myles Garrett story, and is it not much more? I mean, I think we can all live with the fact that he's not there because he doesn't have to be there, but doesn't the story feel like it's a little bit more than that?
Well, I just think that as long as it continues to be mostly radio silence between Garrett and the new coaching staff, it's something to keep an eye on. Now, his absence from OTAs is not abnormal behavior. He typically shows up to one OTA, and that's usually about it. He hasn't showed up to any, as far as I know, right now, and he hasn't had a face-to-face with Todd Monken, as far as I know. So, and because of what happened last year with the trade request, of course, the Browns opened the checkbook and gave him a big pay raise and contract extension. It's still going to be out there. And even with the no trade clause, that doesn't mean he can't be moved, because he certainly can. It just means that it'll be Myles Garrett dictating where he would ultimately end up, should that be the case. So as long as all those things remain out there, combine that with the contract payment structure adjustment, which did not really need to be made, but was made this offseason with no real tangible explanation other than we just did it for the sake of doing it, because that's what we felt like doing, right? And also that what makes it easier for the Browns to trade Myles Garrett after June 1st. That conversation is going to be out there. I certainly understand those that might be annoyed by it, those that might be over it, but the fact remains, and I maintain this: they should have traded him last year. The timeline, I should say, unfortunately, Myles is in the prime of his career. He wants to win football games. He wants to win playoff football games. He wants to play to win Super Bowls, right? Unfortunately, he's got a great defense here in Cleveland, but the offense is in a rebuild, and there's no quarterback here. And you're pretty much dead in the water without a quarterback. Now, I think the Browns are going to win some games.
And I'll leave it at that. We'll stop it right there. But again, that's courtesy 923 The Fan. Now, Darryl Ryder explaining what he sees with the Myles Garrett thing. But shout out to Selmo. He's laughing in the comments. Rose in the house. Good to see you, Raul. And Selmo, thanks for tuning in. But look, man, here I think some of the points he made there about the contract adjustment, that thing kind of threw me off as well a little bit, because he just signed that contract a year ago. Now some people say, well, that helps him with cap and 28, 29, which I don't know why that matters now, but I thought that was a little interesting. And here's what I'll be honest with you guys. What I really think that was, here's what I think that was with the contract adjustment. I think Jimmy Haslam, the Browns, are looking at it like this. We have Deshaun Watson, we have Shador Sanders. If one of those two guys is not our guy coming out of this year, we can use Myles Garrett in a loaded quarterback class next year to trade him to get assets and use those assets to move up to get the quarterback we want, possibly. Now, that's a lot there. You're banking on a lot of luck in some ways to have to work in your favor. You got to find the right suitor. Myles has to sign off on it, and that's where he has a no trade clause. Is it enough capital to even move up in the draft? Because where are those quarterbacks at, in the draft, and how highly coveted are they? So, again, there's a lot that has to go in there. And I think with Myles, if I'm the Browns and Myles, right now I'm not trading Myles. I don't be trading him right now does you nothing. It makes you a worse team this upcoming season. And unless you really and you're kind of signaling to me, those quarterbacks in that room, that we're getting draft capital, because we all know next year's draft class is expected to be better than previous years and have a lot of guys that could be potentially franchise changers. Now they still gotta go and prove it this year. We get all that, but projecting ahead, like franchises are always scouting guys 2 years in advance, because you always have to be looking ahead and being prepared. And so, to me, though, I think you're sending that kind of message to that room. If I'm the Browns, I keep Myles Garrett. Now, in terms of Myles Garrett not being there, Myles Garrett hasn't been to OTAs and all that in previous years. Would I prefer him to be there with a new staff? Yes. I don't think it's a good thing for him not to be there. And don't say you're a leader of a team and you're not showing up to work with the new staff and be there with the guys to try to build continuity with them. You have a new DC, you have a new head coach. Like it's not about him being there, going through the it's just his presence matters to me. Because here's one thing about Myles, especially a lot of these newer guys they got, new staff. It's like you're going to show up in June or July, and get in front of that team and start demanding stuff as you're the lead guy on the defense and start saying stuff. And it's like some guys may look at you and be like, hey, man, you haven't been here all off season working with us. Like, where you want us to listen to you? Like that could happen. I'm not saying it will, but in some cases that can't happen in football where guys don't show up and, the teammates start to look sideways a little bit but I think a lot of these guys, it's the same defense coming back. They all, know Myles. They play with Myles. They know who Myles is. He's the best player in the world, in my opinion. And so he just had the 23 season sack record. But I think for Myles, though, especially with the coaching staff, Myles has never played for a coach like Todd Monken. And Todd Monken may not turn out to be the most successful coach he's played for. Maybe Kevin will still be better. Maybe Todd will be a flunk in a year or two. But he's never played for a coach like Todd because Todd is a little more confrontational in a good way. He holds people accountable. Todd has said openly, Coach Monken has said that he prefers Myles to be there, which I thought that he was very honest when he said that. And he didn't have to say that, but he said it. And I think with Coach Monken, Myles first came to the league under Hugh Jackson. He was a nobody. He was a number 1 overall pick, but he had proven nothing in the NFL. A lot of talent, but he had to prove it. And he was there doing the right things. And then Hugh Jackson obviously got fired. And here comes, Freddie Kitchens. And we know that there's no accountability there. Even your franchise quarterback wasn't even held accountable that year by Freddie. Baker would come in the meetings and the offensive staff is sitting there already drawing up a bunch of things for that week's game plan. If they would come in and just erase the board and do their own thing, like that's the kind of stuff that was going on in the building that year. So, and then with Kevin, I think just the pre-snap penalties alone and leading the league like that just kind of shows what kind of culture that was. A little passive, probably. I've heard stories from people in that locker room, like Coach Monk or Coach Stump even mentioned that, Kevin would just walk right through the locker room a lot of times and not talk to anybody. Like, it was just kind of weird sometimes. Like, they just didn't have the culture it needed. And I think Myles, in some ways, was, and a lot of players in that under that Kevin Stefanski culture, it was kind of a little bit of the accountability wasn't what it should have been. It's not like what it is in like other places, right? Other successful organizations. And so, and again, I think with the leading league in pre-snap penalties, and just when you watch the team and how they performed a lot of Sundays and how they lost and just shooting themselves in the foot constantly, I think that, again, your actions speak louder than words. It really showed that was missing, in my opinion, in a lot of people's opinions. And so I think with Myles, he's never played with a coach like this where Todd Monken's the type of coach where, no, we take the offseason very seriously. We're not having lackadaisical practice, half-ass practice like we've had in the years past. And, we're here to compete and we're here to try to get better. And we're here to win. What we do now and whatever they do in April and May and June matters to Todd Monken. Just like it does for all the other successful organizations, like the one he was part of with the Ravens. That's why they've been very good for many, many years, because John Harbaugh, he takes it very seriously all year long, 365. There is no just, time of, if we're getting on the field, getting on turf, it's going to be productive and it's going to be good work to get us better, get us prepared for what's to come in the season. Where that wasn't like that with OTAs in the past in Cleveland, Stefanski and all that. It was more just, cute practices, in my opinion. And so you've heard guys say the intensity is a little different this year. It's a lot. You can just tell by watching it. So I think with Myles, he's never been under a head coach like that. And I think with Myles, he's going to have to, when he gets there, he's going to have to be very when he arrives, he's got to be Myles Garrett, obviously. But I'm just curious, though, with that coaching staff. How do I word this? Because I'm trying to point this picture where I think where this could be headed. With this new staff, they expect different things, I think, from their players. It's a different era in Browns football. It's a different culture, different standards, different expectations with each player and what they expect every day. And I think with Myles not being there, we know he's going to show up and be Myles Garrett. He's going to perform. But in terms of just the team and the bond, in terms of the coaching staff especially, and getting to know your coaches and get on the same page with them and what they want, it's their show now. This isn't the same old stuff. That, that's where I'm kind of curious how that's going to work with Myles when he comes back. He hasn't been there. He's communicated with them a little. We've heard somewhat, and maybe they have met face to face. Because again, part of me thinks the Browns are kind of just, doing this on purpose. Like I think Todd Monken kind of likes just toying around the media a little bit, which I think is kind of funny. And I like some of the stuff he says. I like Todd Monken, but and I don't believe everything I've read on the about what some people report and stuff. I think some of the stuff just kind of people reaching a little bit and putting stuff out there. But from my own observation of being around football and just what I think, I'm really curious where this dynamic leads. I hope when they get to training camp, you see Myles Garrett and Coach Rutenberg talking a lot. Like they have been communicating. You have been on the phone constantly, texting back and forth about stuff and related to football and all that, and what's going to go on with your system and everything. I hope that him and Todd Monken really, you see them talking a lot, and you hear Myles start to come out and talk about the difference with Coach Monken and everything. So, maybe Myles is upset they didn't hire Jim Schwartz. I don't know, and maybe Myles is just saying, you know what, this is another transition I've been part of here in Cleveland. I'm gonna enjoy my summer and just take a break. And I just broke the single season sack record. I'll show up when I need to. And so maybe that's it. Again, I'll prefer them to be there with the new staff and lead, because I think honestly, talking about this team earlier, and I don't think they're that far away. Obviously got to get a quarterback, but if Deshaun could be the guy, or if Shador can develop into the guy, or if they get a quarterback in the draft somehow, or however they do it, I mean, all they need is solid quarterback play. That's it. Which you could find that with better coaching, that they finally, and I think they finally have the better coaching, and they have better talent around the quarterback finally that they're developing, I think, with better receivers, it looks like, better O-line, better coaching staff. They're not that far away. Like maybe give it a year or two, they might be ahead of schedule, even what Darryl Ryder was pointing out. And a lot of people believe that maybe they're 3 years away. I think they could turn around quickly. You saw what Mike Vrabel did with the Patriots in 1 year. They were 3-14 the year before, and they go 14-3 the next year. The right coach with the right mix, and with some youth and some depth, which they have, like, you never know, man. You can get lightning in the bottle and get something rolling. So if I'm Myles Garrett, I wouldn't try to force my way out of here yet. I would actually show up and see what it looks like this year. Let's ride it out this year and see if we can build something in the next season. Because, hey, what if they go out and win 8, 9, 10 games this year, get to the playoffs possibly, maybe win the division? You never know. Like, now you got something rolling. You can build off that into the next year. And what Myles should know, and I think what Myles will notice when he gets in that building, is the difference with Todd Monken compared to the other coaches they've had. And I think maybe that's what Myles is looking to see. Because I think Myles is looking, he probably hears some other guys that played other teams around the league, unsuccessful organizations, what they see every day. And he's probably thinking, damn, we haven't been doing that ever. And so maybe Myles wants to see it. Maybe Myles wants to believe it before he gets, and he'll believe it when he gets there. And he'll start to see it firsthand day to day with Coach Monken and camp and all that. So, and mini camp coming up. So I don't think Myles is getting traded anytime soon. I think if Myles were to get traded, it would be because the Browns need to use him. I mean, I think ultimately that contract adjustment was more so of that. I think Myles, it gave them both options. It gave Myles the option. It's easier to trade him if he wants, and he has a no trade clause still. And then I think it gave the Browns the option if they need to trade him down the road. I think they're taking this by year, honestly. I think the Myles Garrett Browns relationship is a year-to-year thing. Let's go through this year and see how it looks, and then we'll address it after the season, see where we'll go from there. So I think that's all it is. But in terms of headline right now, is he getting traded anytime soon? No, I don't know why the Browns would trade him right now, unless there was some like unbelievable offer, some team just came out of the blue and gave them, which I don't see right now happening after the draft. So I don't think he's getting traded. I think the Browns actually are better off, and he's better off just sticking around this year and seeing what happens. You got something possibly brewing here. So 54-79-1, Myles is building a winning tradition like Joe Thomas. Well, they're not part of a winning tradition. That's the problem. Two guys with two Hall of Famers wasted years with just bad organization, and nothing get me started. But anyway, shout out to Grandma Harris. She said, Grandma Patty said, watching the show, good points. Appreciate you for tuning in, Grandma. But yeah, I'm going to take a quick break and readjust my notes. When I come back, I'm going to talk some Cavs basketball, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and share to you guys some insight and react to some coverage. So don't go anywhere. Stick around.
It's interesting to me. God really did have that plan for me throughout this entire time.
Mm-hmm.
It was simply just up to me when I was able to stop playing God. I thought I was the one making things happen. No, God is in control. A saying my dad used to always say was, man plans while God laughs. I had a plan for my life. Like, I was going to be, I'm talking about from as soon as I can remember my first thought, I'm going to be in the NFL. I'm going to be, a quarterback. Right. I'm going to, my life was made.
I'm going to have all this money. I'm going to get any girl I want. I'm going to have all these cars.
Yeah,
that's going to be good.
I'm talking Beyonce is going to be like, hey, what are you doing today? Then Rihanna tomorrow. Like it was this plan I had for my life. And as I got older, obviously the plans got smaller, but I still continue to plan. Something that I do now, and I would recommend everybody doing, every single night when I pray, what I used to do was say, God, allow me to pass this test. God, allow me to, meet this girl. God, allow, this date to go well, this day to go well. When I go to sleep every single night, what I pray for is for God's will to be done. Because he obviously knows what he's doing. I don't. Because if I knew what I was doing, I would be, I wouldn't be talking about Baker on the Browns. I'd be on the Browns right now. If I knew if I followed my plan, Beyonce would be hitting me up. She hasn't hit me up. I must have missed that call or something.
She don't want some bake.
Right. She doesn't want the AMP producer. She has a billionaire husband or something. It's interesting to me. God really did have that plan for me throughout this entire time. It was simply just up to me when I was able to stop playing God. I thought I was the one making things happen. No, God is in control. From the moment I wake up, God is in control. So
I was muted. My bad. All right, welcome back. Time to move on to the Cavs, Giannis, and LeBron. Let's start with Giannis, shall we? Because I think right now, when I break all this down, right, a lot of people are talking about what are the Cavs going to do? They just got swept by the Knicks, embarrassing fashion. We heard the reports the other day, significant changes are coming to the roster. They expect major changes. Brian Windhorst said it. Shams Charania has said expect the Cavs to be aggressive in upgrading this roster. You have Donovan Mitchell coming back. You're bringing back James Harden. And so here's the first. Let me lay out how I think this offseason is going to go for you guys. And I'll get this off the screen because we'll get to that in a minute. And so the first thing that has to happen for the Cavs is James Harden's going to opt out. Okay? He's going to opt out. He's going to opt back. They're going to re-sign to another contract. If you can get James Harden, I think they get down to, I think right now he's making $40-something million. I'm not mistaken. I'll look this up. Cavs payroll. We put this up on Spock Track and see what it says. But I know James Harden has to opt out. And Brian Windhorst broke this down the other day. The Cavs have the most expensive roster in the NBA. He is making... Why isn't James Harden showing this? Okay, why is it taking me to 2024 season? Like, really? Okay, here we go. So James Harden right now is making $39.4 million. That's what he made this past season. He has to opt out, or he's going to opt out. I think he has a player option. He's going to opt out. I'm not mistaken. He's a free agent. Either way, he's going to be out. He'll be a free agent. He's going to re-sign a contract. And I think if they can get him down for less money, like I think it's $13 million less, but more guaranteed money, and they'll spread out the contract, then I think that gets them almost to the first apron or into the first apron, because right now they're in the second apron, so they can't really do a whole lot. But I think that'll get them into the first apron. So that's the first domino that has to work for the Cavs. And I think James said he will be back. He James isn't getting a deal like even with the pay cut. It's not even really a pay cut, but the less money on the deal he's going to get here. He's not getting that paid, and he's not getting that paycheck anywhere else. So the Cavs have leverage there. James came out and said after the game 4, I definitely want to be back here. And he pretty much said I will be back. The Cavs want him. They came out and said announced they're going to bring him back. So the Cavs are going to adjust that contract to where it needs to be. And James is going to do whatever. I think if I'm James Harden, I'm sure he'll do this. He's only got X amount of years left. He's got to do whatever it takes to help the team financially. Okay, he's not the 1A option anymore. He's not going to be that. And so that's be the first domino has to fall. The second piece for the Cavs, they have to figure out. After that's over with, okay, you're kind of in the first apron. Maybe shed some salary. You're in the first apron now. Now you got to figure out what you're going to do with Evan Mobley. And the Cavs have to have an honest conversation about that. Evan Mobley's obviously 25, 26 years old. He's not even in his prime yet. He's shown some flash. He's been Defensive Player of the Year. I thought overall in the postseason, he actually was the most consistent type. Him and Max Strus, to me, were consistent the most. I thought they were consistent in their production every night. I thought you saw with Evan when he actually got fed the ball, he could really dominate and take over a game or impact the game, rather. I wouldn't say take over, impact the game. Like game 2 in New York when he had 14 at the first half. They didn't feed him the ball at all and didn't take a single shot in the second half. It's like, so I think with Evan, he still has room to grow and potential. Now, do I think will he ever be a Giannis type guy? Right now, you would say no, obviously, because he's not near that, where Giannis was at this point in his career. But he still has room to become a perennial all-star, a Defensive Player of the Year candidate every year. Like, he's still got a chance to be a dominant, an elite roller to the basket, just a dominant player still, night in and night out. So, the Cavs, that's a valuable piece, obviously, you want to hold on to, especially in this modern NBA with all the space and pace and everything. He's a, athletic big, can handle the ball, can initiate a little bit. He's improved his three-point shooting. So, Evan's not a guy you just want to get rid of. Now, obviously, we've heard the rumors of, you guys have all known. Talked about the other day. It says, according to Ryan Windhorst, who was talking here, the Cavs could have Giannis Antetokounmpo on their roster next year. Obviously, Giannis, superstar, top 5 player in the league when healthy, 5'10" player in the league, MVP, you name it, has won a championship. Finals MVP. We all know who Giannis is. They could have they would have to make the former NBA Defensive Player of the Year, Evan Mobley, the centerpiece of the trade. He said, quote, Mobley would instantly have Milwaukee's attention. He said, I don't like the idea of trading a 25-year-old Mobley for a 31-year-old Antetokounmpo, but if the Cavs were willing to make Mobley available, it would instantaneously have Milwaukee's attention. It just would. And so it goes on in that. It says, because you're talking about a guy who's under contract for 4 more years, who's been an all-NBA and Defensive Player of the Year. What they're being offered from other teams is just not that. And it shows here some of the offers. The team in particular that I said is the team that a lot of people felt all year is making a big push for Giannis. And I know there's some reports coming out of Milwaukee today saying Giannis prefers Miami, because he has 1 year left on his contract. Will he sign an extension wherever he goes? Which is a big deal. Now, if I'm Giannis, though, would I rather play with, Donovan Mitchell and what they could build here in Cleveland, who just went to the conference finals, or do I want to go to Miami with Bam? And can Pat Riley kind of sell his agent, maybe if they talk or whoever, that, we've done this before, we want to bring you here with Bam, we could build something out. Now, the Heat are said to be offering the Bucks a package that includes Tyler Hero, Jamie Jaquez, Khalil Ware, and multiple first-round draft picks for Giannis. And he goes on to talk about it's a strong offer, but none of those players are former All-NBA players like Mobley. Therefore, the Cavs can make a strong offer for the Greek Freak. And so it goes on in this article down here. It says, according to Brian Windhorst, the ball is in Cleveland's court right now. The longtime NBA scribe truly believes that if the team is willing to move their young big man, the Bucks would accept him as the main piece in a trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo. And then talks about the contract extension and that part of it. And so it goes on. Giannis has 1 year left on his contract. So if you get serious about it, if you were to give it up at Mobley at 4 years, 210, if you're willing to give up a young all-star on a controlled deal for 4 more years, you'd have to know that Giannis was going to re-sign. And so that's the biggest key to all of this. two things. Are the Cavs willing to trade Mobley? And I think by Dan Gilbert's tweet after Game 6, I'll get to this comment. Tribe 00 says, I trade weirdo Jared Allen for a bag of Doritos. Shout out to Genesis Truffle. He says, yo, what up, my friend? Thanks for tuning in. Shout out to Tribe 00. But back to shout out to Tribe 00. That made me laugh. But back to this, though. So two things have to happen here. The Cavs, again, they got to decide whether they want to trade Evan Mobley. And I think by his tweet the other night, and that was for my show the other day, where's the tweet at from Dan Gilbert right there? We took a big step ahead this spring, but we are nowhere near we need to be. Nowhere near. And he said, we will dig all in this summer, do everything we possibly can to take the next step. We will grind until we get there. That tweet to me from the owner says a lot. Because if you know the Cavs and followed them for a long time, Dan's been kind of out of the mix for recent years. Now he's back and he's tweeting after every game. He's back involved and Dan wants to win. And when he says we're nowhere near we need to be, that means, like the report said after they said they're retaining Atkinson, big changes are coming. And so your best trade piece you have right now is Evan Mobley, because Donovan's not going anywhere. You're not trading Donovan. And you're not trading James Harden. And I don't know what Harden's value even is right now, to be honest with you. Jared Allen has some value. I think he has more value than a bag of Doritos, but he's not your biggest centerpiece. Evan Mobley is. And so what you can get from Evan Mobley is also what I said the Cavs need. And I think part of the reasons why the Cavs said we'll bring back Kenny Atkinson, to me, I think the Cavs are signaling we believe this is more of a player thing in our locker room. Not much more. I don't think it's as much talent. It is somewhat, a lot of it is talent, but I think a lot of it is also we need a true number one. We love Donovan. Donovan's great. He's a great player, but I think the Cavs have realized what Shaq told Donovan to his face years ago, that you're just not that guy that's going to lead a team to a championship. You're just not. Kind of basically what Shaq was saying to him, that he's not a guy that's going to, lead a franchise to the ultimate championship. Remember that awkward interview, but I think the Cavs have kind of realized that. I think them bringing back Atkinson after all that happened, in that series against the Knicks, all the stuff he said and what happened, how it unplayed on the court, blowing 22-point lead and quitting at home in an embarrassing fashion. I think they're basically saying we don't have that true number one guy to lead us to a championship. We like Donovan. We love Donovan. Hell of a player. Probably a great number two. But we need that guy that's been there and done that before that can lead and help this franchise, not only from a talent perspective, be better, to add up to these other franchises, but also help us get back to that point. Somebody can, take the bull by the horn and just go for it in the final moments, especially, and just take over a game. And so you don't got to doubt this guy showing up every night. He brings it every game and every night. So I think with the Cavs, it makes a lot of sense. Because you're in a win now scenario. When you traded Darius Garland away for James Harden, you're saying we want to win now. Because you took a guy that was 26 years old to trade him for a guy that was 10 years older, who's on the back end of his, definitely on the back end of his, career. So you're signaling we got to win now. We got Donovan. We got to go get it. And the East is wide open. And so the Cavs, I think, if the Bucks are willing to take that deal, and I think, honestly, if I'm the Bucks, the Miami deal is a good deal in terms of, numbers, and like you get draft picks, you get some shooting, you get this player, you get that. But like it points out in that article there, none of them are Evan Mobley. And if I'm the Bucks, if I get Evan Mobley, maybe some other pieces in that deal, like some draft picks, maybe something else, to me, that's the best deal. You get a centerpiece. That's what you build around. Bring in a bunch of scrap pieces. Let me take that. Tyler Hero's not a scrap piece by any means. And none of those guys, these are NBA players. They're NBA players. But you're trading, what I mean by that, what I said is you're trading Giannis Antetokounmpo away for guys that are never going to be number twos in your franchise. Like Tyler Hero, as good as he is as a shooter, he's not a number two ever on a franchise. He's just not. Okay, he's Klay Thompson maybe at best. I don't know if he's better than Klay. He'll be better than Klay because Klay was a good defender. But you're not bringing back that guy. And if Miami gets Giannis, those draft picks are not going to have the same value because they're going to be higher. You expect them to be better. You expect them to be good. So it's like, to me, that deal it's kind of similar remember when the Pelicans traded Anthony Davis away to the Lakers, and everybody hyped up that, oh, look at the Lakers, they're getting BI, they're getting Lonzo, getting Josh Hart, getting all these guys, and blah blah blah. And it was like, yeah, they got all these draft picks. They're gonna be like OKC when OKC fleeced the Clippers and brought in Paul George, or traded Paul George away for all they got. Oh man, look at all these players. They got they got a point guard. They got Brandon Ingram. They got the next KD and blah blah blah. And it was a lot of ifs, ands, and buts. But looking back at that trade now, they got hosed in that trade. The Pelicans are still a shitty franchise, a shitty basketball team, and they got some. I mean, they got some nice players, but Brandon Ingram's not on the franchise anymore. Lonzo's almost out of the league, and Josh Hart is with the New York Knicks right now, in the NBA Finals. So how did that work out for them? So again, and the media hyped up that trade so much, because it was all about getting AD to LA, make sure it got done, and to help the Lakers and LeBron. And that was a terrible trade. That was overly fabricated by the media, pushed, and it got done. And the Pelicans fell for it when they could have went and got better from the Boston Celtics. Could have got a better deal. And look where they are, still in shit, in a shitty franchise. So if I'm the Bucks, I look at that and say I'm not going down that road, because Giannis, I think, has more value than AD at that when AD had. And so if I'm the Bucks, if I can get Giannis, if I can get Evan Mobley for Giannis, and I got to trade Giannis because he's not signing back here, he wants out, it's over with, I definitely want Evan Mobley, because Evan Mobley can definitely become a number 2. And if not a number 2, he's a damn good 3. Again, you got a guy who's already won Defensive Player of the Year and been an All-Pro on the defensive side of the ball. Like, that's who you want to build back with. And you could build pieces around him. You make smarter trade. There's smart trades in the draft is how you build back, become another contending team again. And you got to have pieces like that. You got to have an anchor down low. And so if I'm the Bucks, that's a no-brainer. I'm definitely taking the Cavs deal over the Miami Heat's deal all day, every day. I don't care if the media wants to go. They want to go to Miami for more televised games and blah, blah, blah. The hell with that. He's coming to Cleveland. All right, get your coats on. We're going to cover Giannis at the Cavs because it makes the most sense for both teams. Okay, and so to me, it's ultimately up to the Cavs. And if I'm the Cavs, you already signaled you're in a win now situation. The only way you don't do this trade is 2 things. LeBron is not coming back, right? Let's say LeBron is not coming. He goes to Golden State, right, or stays in LA somehow, and he's not coming to Cleveland. Okay, so now I'm holding on to Evan Mobley. And what I would do is my next best trade pack, which I would not even want to trade this guy, but you would have to see what you can get, is not Jared Allen, but Max Strus, who I love. I don't want to trade him, and then Jared Allen. You see what you get for that. Can you call the Pelicans, get something going there, maybe get some better wings? But to me, if I'm the Cats, if you really want to elevate your franchise, go get the guy that's actually done it and is a real number 1. Okay. He's been averaging 30 points a season the last, 2-3 years. He didn't play this past year because he got hurt a little bit. Then he shut it down because they were out of the playoff. He shut it down. Let's be honest. Okay, he's fine. He shut it down. All right. The guy's averaged 30 for the last 2-3 years. He's in the prime of his career. He's a Greek freak. He's got his own signature shoe. He's a true number. He's won a championship. You go get that guy. Okay. So I love him, Mobley, but I got to win now. I'm going to get Giannis. And then after I get Giannis, let's talk about the man himself. Let's talk about old Brian. So this was the other day. I put this on my show from Brett Siegel. It says, if the Cavaliers and the Lakers were to complete a LeBron James signing trade, Jared Allen will undoubtedly be involved in the trade. All right, so I talked about that the other day. So we're not trading for a bag of Doritos, unless you think he's a bag of Doritos strapped down. That's a great comment, by the way. Thanks again for the comment. It made me laugh. But latest report about LeBron for Brian Windhorst. Let me get this on a bigger. There we go. It says LeBron's camp would reportedly want an exclamation for the Lakers if they offer him anything less than a max contract. Windhorst noted that James and his camp want the Lakers to make a contract offer, and if it is anything and if it's for anything less than the maximum, they want the Lakers to explain why and what are the players they are going to target with the money that is saved. So what he's saying is they're approaching the Lakers, or no, they're not approaching the Lakers. They want the Lakers to approach them. So you go back to the report Dave McMenamin put out after their season was over. LeBron has felt kind of in the shadow of the Lakers recently. Hasn't felt appreciated, was what they said, right? He wants the Lakers to cater to him like they have in years past when Jeannie was there, but she ain't there no more. It's a new sheriff in town named Mark Walters. Right? They just cleaned out their front office, a lot of the front office. They just had a bunch of layoffs in the Lakers organization yesterday, so they're coming in hot. It's a whole new era in Lakers basketball. It's Mark Walters' era. And they're running like they have with the Dodgers and with the Redskins back then, and now the Commanders. So they're coming in hot. They're making changes. And with LeBron, though, he wants them to show me, A, that you want me back, B, what you're going to do for me, and C, how are you going to change this roster? And I'm just going to go to number A. I don't think the Lakers want him back. I don't think Mark Walters, the owner, is interested in bringing LeBron back. And I think he's made that very clear. And that's been a rumor all season long, going back to last summer. But if you look at Mark Walters' history as an owner in other sports, whenever he's had an aging star who is still productive, still a great player, he usually doesn't pay them. And I think what Mark Walters told the Lakers for the season was he's getting paid $50 million, let him play out his contract, and then let him walk. We got Luka Doncic, who's a top 5 player in the league, arguably. We got a superstar right there. We can build around him, and we'll go from there. And I think that's what they're doing. And you look, when the franchise starts making all these changes like they're making, they're shifting. And they're shifting fast. And they've made their decision. And LeBron knows it. I think LeBron knows they're going. I even saw, too, some of the LA reporters now are even coming out. Like, I think it was Ryan Ward out there. He came out and said, he goes, ultimately, he thinks LeBron will be gone. I think a lot of them deep down inside know LeBron's going to be gone. Now, there are some Lakers channels and reporters starting to say, he'll be back and he'll take less and, LA's home and blah, blah, blah. But listen, the Lakers closed that door themselves, I believe. Our play can come out and say whatever he wants in a PC manner. Please. It's over. All right. I don't think LeBron's going back to LA. I give it a 3% chance, and you never know. If he really wants to stay out there that bad, and I get it, but I don't think he's going back to LA. Based on what I've heard, what I've read, I don't think he's going back to LA. I think the Lakers have moved on. And I think what LeBron is doing right now is just, going through the proper offseason protocols. He's been through this before. He's been a free agent. This is 4th time being a true free agent. 2010, obviously, and then 2014 and 2018. So he knows how to go through this process, and he's very calculated. And now he's at the back. This is it for him. This is his last big decision. So I think LeBron is just putting this out, his camp put this out there to Brian when it says LeBron's camp. And I think they're putting out there what, this is what they want from the Lakers, right? Blah, blah, blah. I don't think he's going back to the Lakers. And I think LeBron told you on his podcast after the season what he really thinks about the Lakers. Because remember here, if people are thinking he's going to go back to LA, you got to remember this point. It says in that article, that report right there, he wants to see what they're going to do in terms of upgrading that roster, right? What are you going to do with those players? Like, okay, I take a pay cut, but I give you all this money. Who are you going to go get to make us significantly? Who's going to make us to the same level as OKC and the Thunder? And the Spurs, and even other teams are going to get better too. So, and I get before they got injured, before Luka got hurt, they were playing really well, right? They were rolling. Do I still think they would have beat the Thunder or beat the Spurs? Probably not. I don't know if they have the defense to get that, to get enough stops, to help them beat those teams. But I put in the chat right now, if the Lakers never got hurt, were healthy this year, do you think they would have even had a shot to beat the Thunder in that series? Because LeBron told you what it was. And yes, they didn't have Luka. Austin Reeves came back, and Luka's obviously a huge domino, no doubt about it. But, ultimately, I think when LeBron made these comments on his podcast, and then you see this report saying, he doesn't believe, or you read this, on this report that he wants them to show him what they're going to do with that money if he takes a pay cut and to bring him back. Here's what LeBron said on Mind the Game with Steve Nash on via Uninterrupted Network, Fair Use. But here's what he said about that after the season.
I have the passion and the admiration to host the Larry O'Brien Trophy up every single year, but I also have a realization of what particular team I have been a part of in that particular year. And, understanding this year, we fought and we played to the maximum ability of our team. But ultimately, if we're being completely honest, we were out-talented. We were not outworked. We were not, they didn't out-physical us. They didn't outsmart us. I feel like we were just out-talent, by OKC. They just possessed so much more talent.
Yeah.
And they might have had a couple more possessions where some IQ could kick in, but that happens throughout the course of the game. That goes for both teams. I feel like there's times where we had moments where we out-Q'd them, but IQ'd them. So, but at the end of the day, we failed in talent. Okay.
We failed in talent. You don't come out and say that. If you're going back there, I'll just be honest. The GM's still in place, Rob Pelinka, because you're basically telling him we didn't have enough talent to go out and get it done. And then he also said, too, he didn't use the injury excuse. He said we played to our maximum effort and level, and it still wasn't enough. We got out-talented. And so if he's sitting there in this report, and according to this report, if he wants them to show that if I take a pay cut, what are you going to do with all that money? I think what LeBron's saying is there's nobody they can get to significantly upgrade that roster. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Austin Reeves. They're going to pay him, right? Luka's the main guy there now. It's like Luka's really the guy that they're building around. So it's almost LeBron. They're not catering to him as much anymore. He's not the main centerpiece at all. And he told you what he thinks, that they were out talented, like he just said. And what moves are they going to make to significantly upgrade that roster in the West with the Spurs and OKC you got to go through? Not one, but two. So, again, I think it's all signs are pointing towards he's not going back to the Lakers, okay? I don't know if he wants to stay out West. The Warriors are a team that I heard it's a real possibility. It's been considered. It's been discussed. But I think Draymond's trying to pull him there. But I don't see why he'd want to go there. Number one, it's a lackluster story for the NBA because it's just weird. LeBron and Golden State, that's not, and him and Steph Curry teaming up one last run. It's like, that's not driving anybody to the television. All right. That's not boosting the ratings, in my opinion. Because it's just kind of like, okay, they're still going to lose and they're not making it to the championship. They're still in the West. They're all older. Jimmy Butler's getting paid $50-something million. He's over the hill. Draymond's way over the hill. LeBron's in the back end. Maybe it's last year. Steph's still productive, obviously a great player, but that's an old team. That's just not. It's LeBron with the Golden State Warriors too. That was his rival when he was in Cleveland. Like that was a beef. Like we don't like the Warriors. Like come on. So I don't see that happening either. I mean I wouldn't rule it out. I think it's a possibility, but if I'm LeBron, I don't see why that even makes sense for him to even do that. I think that'd be a bad ending to a great career. I think you could do a lot better. He's better off staying in LA, taking a pay cut than going to Golden State, in my opinion, and just riding it out there. But I don't think he's going back to LA, and I don't think it makes sense to go to the Warriors, and you're still out West. You want to finish. I think LeBron wants the storybook ending. I think LeBron wants to make his own version of The Last Dance, personally. And so, we've heard reports in recent years he's had camera crews around him trying in case they won those years. Like I think LeBron's aiming for that type of ending and document it. So that's just my opinion. Now, in terms of what teams can get for LeBron, right here, this article here, I think it was Bleacher Report, did a nice job of putting out what each team could leave or to give them, right? And what's the best potential scenario and contract scenario to get him. So let's start with the Cavs. Obviously, with the past success with the Cavs and LeBron, they can sign and trade or a minimum deal. And the minimum deal would be around $3 million. Maybe they can clear an MLE mid-level exception. And it would be an immediate championship contender in the East. So a sign and trade option is probably the most likely option. If he wants to go to Miami Heat, which I don't think he'll ever go back to Miami, but it would be a sign and trade or minimum deal. But he ain't going to Miami. If he wants to go to the Warriors, minimum deal, pairing with Curry could create a high-profile contender. I think the Warriors could actually open up an MLE, which would be around like $15 million. So maybe that could be more money than what he'd get from, the Cavs. But I don't know if he really wants to go there. If he wanted to go to the Knicks, he would have to basically sign a minimum deal, and it'll just be more of just because it's the Knicks, he wants to play there. But I don't think he's even considered the Knicks personally. So I think Miami and the Knicks are just teams being thrown in the mix that aren't really real, if I'm being honest with you guys. I think it's the Cavs, Lakers, and Warriors, but I think the Lakers' door is becoming more and more shut. I think they've shut the door. So that leaves the Cavs and the Warriors. And I don't see I just don't see the Warriors still have a lot of financial hoops too. Again, Jimmy Butler's opted in for $50-something million on his player option. I don't see him going there. And I don't think that's to me, if LeBron goes to Golden State just because he wants to go hang out for a year, go golf and do podcasts with Draymond and hang out, and that's about it, and sail off in retirement. He might as well just retire now, though, because they're not winning the West. So I think the Cavs make the most sense. It's a storybook ending. He has a chance to compete and win a championship, like he said there. He still wants to hoist on Larry O'Brien. I think he wants to get the championship number 5 if he can. He wants to go out with a bang. LeBron wants to go out with a bang. Okay, and so Cleveland checks all the boxes. It makes the most sense. Now, how can Cleveland get it done is the question. Again, James Harden opting out and signing that new deal is going to help them a lot. And then also, let's say you trade Mobley for Giannis. Those salaries are about equal, so it won't really hurt you as much. Now you got to really, you got to get rid of a lot of your expiring deals and waive those and clear those off your books so you clear more money. Then LeBron's got to decide, if I want to go to Cleveland, do I want to subtract from that or I want to just sign for that? And I think one thing the Cavs could use to their advantage is this. That I'm going to take some water real quick. Is this. Dan Gilbert last year, you remember this report. Let me pull this up for you guys. Dan Gilbert last year, because Dan Gilbert said we're going to do whatever it takes to get better. We're nowhere near we need to be. Remember that? We just read that from after the game the other night. Let me put this up for you guys. You guys remember this from last year? Oh, well, June 26, 2025. And they haven't been sold since. You remember this? The 15% of the franchise? And LeBron has ownership desires an NBA team. Now, LeBron can't outright buy an NBA team because he can't afford it. He's rich, but we're talking, billionaire owners here. He's not that rich in terms of that money. So, but he has investors. He's with Fenway Sports Group. He's got some other investors. He can get involved into a franchise. The Cavs owner retains bank to sell stake in NBA franchise. And this was last year. And it says it was 15% of the franchise. And it was according to a half dozen sources who asked not to be named because the details are private. Okay, interesting. But they're exploring to selling up to 15% of the team. So what if LeBron takes a big pay cut from the Cavs, right? And mind you, he's telling the link. Brian Windhorst said, well, I haven't heard LeBron come out and say he's taking a pay cut. True. But he also reported that LeBron is willing to take a pay cut if the Lakers can sell him on what players are getting. What if the Cavs can sell him on something as well that the Lakers can't? What if he is actually willing to take a pay cut because it gives him the best chance to win and gives him the best ending he wants his career? But what if this is not the Lakers? What if it's the Cavs? What if the Cavs go out and get Giannis right around the draft, before the draft, or during the draft they get Giannis, right? They got Harden, they got Mitchell, they still got some other Pete, they got Jared Allen still, they got Max Strus, they got shooters, they can do some other things, they can bring in some nice role players. What if the Cavs sell LeBron? And what if the Cavs say, hey, we can't give you the money you really would want, what you're worth, but we got a 15% ownership stake we can give you in the deal too. Myles Garrett, clutch client, got ownership stake in the Cavs, at least a small percentage. You don't think LeBron can get on this 15%? Why not? Then he can. When he's retired, he's already got stake in an ownership group, and it's his hometown team. So it's just something to consider. Now, if he chooses to, if he really wants his money, what he's worth, I get that, then the Jared Allen sign and trade is very real. Going back to that Jared Allen making $28, almost $30 million. LeBron could sign for, let's say, 30. Let's say he signs $30 million for 2 years. The Cavs would sign and trade Jared Allen for LeBron. So that could happen. I don't know. Now, there's some people pushing back on that, saying it could be there's some ways it may not work financially, but I think the Cavs, they want to make it happen. They'll find a way to make it happen. There's always some way. So, but if I'm the Cavs, if LeBron's willing to listen to the Lakers about what, and he'll possibly take a pay cut, and and LeBron already told you though what he thinks of that roster. They're out talented, and I don't know what move they're going to make that's going to significantly make them better. They'd have to trade for Giannis. They're not trading for Giannis. Okay. So he knows that. I think what LeBron's signaling is, I think LeBron might be setting it up for something else. I'm just telling you right now. And shout out to my guy, Paramjant. Good to see you, brother. He said, I think we're getting both Bron and Giannis. He said, Giannis can get checked out at Cleveland Clinic too, the best hospitals to fix his injury issues. Yeah, it's gonna be one way. And he liked Quaker steak wing, so just give him a all-you-can-eat wing thing there. But no, I mean, are we getting both? I think it's a hell of a possibility we're getting both. A hell of a possibility. Because again, we talked about the Bucks side of things. The Cavs have the better deal. If the Cavs want to trade Mobley for Giannis, they're most likely getting Giannis. Let's just be honest. Okay, that's a better deal than Miami's. Based on what LeBron's saying and what he's signaling, the Cavs can offer a better package, a better situation for LeBron to go out with a bang than the Lakers, and then give him an ownership stake if he desires that. Why not? Why you don't think Dan Gilbert would consider that? Please, of course he would. It's great business for him. But then also, don't forget this. Another thing I want to point out to you guys. Emmett Golden of ESPN said the Cavs may have to find a new GM this offseason. I'm being told that Mike Gansey is a serious candidate for the 76ers president position. Gansey is the Cavs GM right now. He's a serious candidate to go to 76ers for a president position. So an upgrade for him. And congrats to him if he gets the job. And shout out to Real Cavs fan. I mentioned this name millions of times in the show because I'm kind of familiar with him. The Browns. The Cavs assistant GM is Brandon Weems. Who's Brandon Weems, you might ask? Brandon Weems was on LeBron's high school team at St. Vincent St. Mary. They're childhood friends. Okay. I'm sure LeBron and Brandon Weems, I'm sure he worked his way up the ladder, but LeBron, I'm sure, helped some ways and maybe get him in the NBA. I could be wrong on that, but he got a job at the Cavs, obviously, when LeBron was here. So that's LeBron's guy. Okay. You move him right up to GM. So LeBron's guy is the GM. And also at the same time, possibly. If Gansey is a serious candidate and it's leaning towards he might get that job, you make Brandon Weems a GM. It's the best of both worlds for LeBron. One of his best friends in life is his childhood friend is a GM. He gets ownership stake. He's got Giannis. He's got Harden. He's got Mitchell. He's in the East. He's back home. He's got the storybook end. Like, he's got everything he needs right here. It all makes sense. It's a storybook ending. And it's his version of The Last Dance. So, to me, I think all signs are pointing towards LeBron in particular. I think LeBron is leaning towards coming back. I really do. And, I know he mentioned he mentioned the date about, he could lead into August and all that. I think you'll know by 4th of July what LeBron's doing. I'll just leave it at that. I think you guys will know by the 4th of July what's going to happen. So, but I think that's the Cavs to me make the most sense for him and Giannis. And I think if I'm the Cavs, you're set up in a position where, Giannis even, you sign him an extension, you're going to have him and Mitchell paired together for, some years. And you can still compete, So, and LeBron, I think, is the piece they need to kind of put it all together. Giannis he's the number one option, right? Mitchell's a hell of a number two. James Harden, if he can clean up some of those, he can be a good service, a good quality point guard in this league who can get busy and get hot some nights. He needs to get better defensively. But and if you're LeBron, you're the guy that's going to lead the charge and get him over the hump, and it's your back of your franchise in your hometown. What not a better way to go out than another championship in Cleveland? I mean, that's phenomenal. So I think it all makes sense. I think that's where it could be all be leaning towards. I think as the weeks lead up, I think a lot of what you guys are hearing right now is just a lot of you're hearing a lot of ifs and buts and, this could happen, this could happen. I think it's leaning this way. Nobody really knows what the hell they're really leaning towards right now. A lot of what you're seeing is just good. It's entertainment. Okay. Number one, it's got people interested. It's got fans interested. So people are going to be tuning in and on different shows and looking at X, looking at reports, looking at different sites, looking for the latest rumors and everything. So I think you just have to look at it optically, like I just displayed all this to you guys. And then also listen to what LeBron said. Again, what he said about the talent issue. But LeBron also spoke on that same podcast as well about his free agency coming up. And I thought LeBron mentioned an interesting piece to this because a lot of what LeBron's future is going to be based around is family. Obviously he has a daughter, he has a wife. I thought what LeBron said in this one clip at the end of this, I'm going to let him explain what he's thinking about in free agency, what he's looking for. But I thought what he says at the end of this, and maybe I'll fast forward a bit because I waited to sit and listen to everything right here. So let's start here. This is LeBron on his show being asked about his free agency. And I'm going to break down two things here he mentioned. One of I just kind of talked about. So let's start with that one. And then I'll get to the last thing that really stood out to me about LeBron. Again, going back to the family side of things, family's obviously a big part of his decision. He's got a daughter. He's, I think, 10 years old. He's got a son, obviously, on his team with him. He's got a son in Arizona. A lot of everything's out West Coast. So that's why I think that's the reason why you hear a lot of the Golden State stuff too, because if he wants to leave LA, he could stay, just go up to Golden State, stay on the West Coast. He wants to stay out there. But he mentioned something here I thought was interesting. So let's take a listen to what he said.
Do you want to play? Where do you want to play?
Right.
Who do you want to play with? All that stuff. What goes into that? I mean, where is your mind right now? Are you thinking about it every day? Are you getting close to feeling a direction, or are you just like, I need some time still?
Yeah, I'm still in the moment of like just taking my time and saying I haven't even really thought about it too much. Obviously, I understand that I'm a free agent and I can control my own destiny. If being here with this franchise, for foreseeable future, or if it's going somewhere else. But like, I haven't even really got to that point. I haven't even taken my family vacation yet, which is going to happen after Memorial Day. That's kind of the thing at the forefront of my mind. But I think at some point, up until up in June, late June, as July roll around, free agency starts to gets going, and as July rolling and maybe into August, we start to kind of like get a feel of what my future may look like. If it's continuing to play the game that I love, which I know I can still give so much to the game and play at a high level, or if it's not. So, but I have not got to that point yet. And when I get there, it'd be fun to kind of see what the future could hold. Either if it's, like I said, in another NBA arena for another year or not.
Yeah. But I assume you'd probably only want to go in a positive environment where you can win.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Year 24 is not a starting at the bottom.
So my reaction to that first part, I don't think he's going to go to August. I think you guys will know by July 4th what LeBron's going to do. And I'll leave it at that. But you notice what he said there, though, in the beginning. He said, I'm going to go take a vacation first. That's the only thing in my mind right now. I've heard them say that before. When he was an impending free agent back in 2014, when he was in Miami and he came back to Cleveland, he had his exit interview that year. Listen to what he says there. Kind of the same tone back then. We all know what the result of that was. Here's what he said then.
Wrap my mind around it. My mind went on what happened in the finals, and the disappointment and myself not being able to come through for the team to help us win. I need to get away with my family, before I even start to think about, what happens next.
So, Ron, when do you think you'll meet with your team and the team and maybe entertain those discussions?
I don't know. I mean, I plan on getting away soon, take my family on vacation, well-needed vacation with them. And, after that, maybe I'll be a little bit more clear-headed about the things that need to be done going in the future.
Same exact tone, same exact sentiment. I need to go on vacation, and I'll think about it when I get back. Same thing he just said on his own show, Mind the Game. Okay, so same similar symptoms as last time when he was a free agent, and we all know the result. What happened there? He didn't go back to that franchise, did he? No, he didn't. So let's continue with LeBron because he says some more things on this part here talking about his future that I'm gonna react to. So let's finish up.
Yeah. No, there's no way. There's no way. Just, I mean, winning is most important because you want to be excited about going to work every day. You want to be excited about, like I said earlier, winning the day, and being around a group of guys that, feel the same way and trying not to take steps backwards. Understand the season is a long marathon and whatever the case may be. But those building blocks throughout the course of the season is what matters to when you get to the marathon, and where you get to the sprint, which is now, the postseason. Yeah. So yeah. I'm not going anywhere where it's a start over at year 24 or things of that nature.
Yeah, basically, I'm gonna go back to somewhere where I know I'm familiar with, which is home. But let's continue.
Yeah,
I'm done with that.
So that's a part of the equation. The other part of the equation is family. I mean, your kids have grown up for the most part in LA.
Yeah.
You got to consider that. At the same time, like you're not going to go sign a 6-year deal somewhere. So
right.
It's but it's still a consideration that I think is. I'm having been there at the end of my career when I went to the Lakers. It was a tricky decision for me. And you got to weigh all these things. I imagine that's something that's important to you.
No, it's very important, and it's up there. I mean, 1A and 1B is like where do I feel comfortable with doing with my career, but also with my family. How do they feel about whatever decision that I'm able to come up with and make, and that's a joint decision as well. I give them the insight, both my boys, my daughter, and my wife. So it's 1A and 1B. I don't think one is higher than the other, whatever the case may be. So yeah, that's very important. Obviously. Have an opportunity to spend a lot of time with Bronny over the last couple of years. That's great. And, Bryce is, going into his second year at AZ at Arizona. My daughter will be 12 in the fall and she's, doing her volleyball thing. And, it's a decision that will be made between all of us. Obviously, I know my family will give me the final say so as they've always done and always respected it. But I'm definitely conscientious about their feelings and, their dad being around or not being around as much as they would like. So
that's interesting right there to me. That stood out to me. He said, ultimately, the decision's going to be his. He'll respect his family's feelings, obviously. But what he said right there, listen to what he said again.
Feelings and, their dad being around or not being around as much as they would like. So that's definitely important.
Yeah. So again, when I hear a lot of people say, well, he wants to stay in LA, wants to stay in California, the West Coast, I think he kind of just told you right there without saying it, like, hey, my family may stay out here in LA because this is technically our home now. We're building a house out here, obviously, the compound he's building out there, like a $50 million mansion, whatever. But if he goes away for a year back home to Cleveland, and I don't think it's really gonna matter. If he feels like that's what he needs to do and what's the best decision for him, he's gonna do it. So family obviously will play a factor, but like he said right there, I thought it was interesting he said it like that. Whether I'm around or I'm not around. Why wouldn't you be around? Probably because you're playing in a different time zone, possibly. Just a thought. But like I said, I think we'll know that by 4th of July weekend. So appreciate you guys for tuning in today. Shout out to Chantel. She said, please tell me the Browns are not starting Deshaun. I guess it's time to sell my season tickets. And be honest, Chantel, it seems like it's definitely leaning in that direction. But you never know. I mean, we got to get the camp, got to get the preseason. So we'll see what happens. But I think that's where their signs are definitely pointing towards. But we'll see. But appreciate all you guys for tuning in today. Love all you guys. Like, subscribe, and share and all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next one. I'm out of here.